Lin Haotian sat on the broken single bed in the dormitory, wearing a virtual reality helmet that had just arrived at the goods, staring at the projection screen in front of him, and couldn't help but snoring the corners of his mouth. In 2035, technology has long been developing rapidly, but it is the first time that a fully immersive virtual game like The Legend of the World has truly entered the life of ordinary people. As a sacrificial student, he spent half a year on pocket money to afford this equipment. Today, he finally got to plunge into this popular land in the tradition. Haotian, are you really going to play this game? I heard that it's super hardcore, and you still have to drop the equipment if you die, and you still have to drop the level. Zhang Dalai beside him was gnawing on the noodles and staring at him with suspicious eyes. Zhang Dalai is Lin Haotian's death party. He is a brother with a strong figure and a slag on his face. He is usually careless, but he always cares about his brother's affairs. What are you afraid of? It's just a game. You can't come back if you die. Lin Haotian sniffed his shoulders, his hair was slightly slight and his facial features were pretty. He looked like an ordinary college student, but there was a sense of dissatisfaction in his eyes. Again, I heard that this game has a very high degree of freedom, and hidden tasks and Easter eggs. I don't believe that my luck is so bad. Brother Lei rolled his eyes and put the soaked noodles on the table. Okay, I'll play with you anyway. Choose a tank career and give you a meat shield. Don't be too fast, and I heard that there are people in the novice area who are squatting and snatching resources by advanced players. Lin Haotian smiled and pointed his head, adjusted his helmet, and lay down and closed his eyes. With a slight flu, his consciousness was instantly pulled into a brand new world. When he opened his eyes, he found that he was standing on a vast grassland, with the fragrance of grass in the air, and the distance was the snow-capped mountains, and the sky above was as blue as a huge stone. The land under your feet has a real touch when you step on it. The wind blows on your face and you can even feel a hint of emotion. The full immersion technology of The Legend of the World is indeed unfair and is nothing different from the reality. Welcome to the great land of heaven and choose your career. A gentle female voice echoed in his ears, and at the same time, several light curtains appeared in front of him, showing the introduction of careers such as warriors, jurists, and assassins. Lin Haotian glanced at him. The warrior was too fleshy and the gameplay was adjusted, the wizard output was high but too crisp, the assassin was good, flexible and explosive, but the operation requirements were high. He hesitated for a moment, and finally ordered the assassin, thinking that he had reacted very quickly and should be able to play. The career selection is completed, please create your character appearance. The system sounds sounded again. Lin Haotian didn't have much patience and directly chose the preset appearance. Anyway, no one in the game knew who they were, so they were so rude. Then, the system prompted him to enter the game ID, and he tapped Tianhao with his hand, and the result showed that it had been occupied. After trying it a few times, he simply used his real name Lin Haotian and passed it. The character creation has been completed. Will it be introduced to beginners? The system asked. Enter. Lin Haotian pointed a little. The next second, his eyes turned dark and he immediately appeared on a small village. There are all new players wearing plain clothes around, some are studying task panels, and some have already started to form teams to run outside the village. He looked down and saw that he was wearing a broken cloth, holding a short dagger with a lens in his hand, and the level 1 was displayed on the attribute panel, and his health and attack power were so low. This is a newbie's, it's so shabby. He murmured, opened the task panel at once, and prepared to take on several simple task training practitioners. At this moment, the system suddenly issued a crisp reminder, congratulations to player Lin Haotian for touching and hiding the Easter eggs, and he won the chance to draw once. Will he draw it immediately? Lin Haotian was stunned for a moment, hiding the Easter egg? I just entered the game. Is the weather so good? He didn't think much about it, and just clicked yes. A huge turnover immediately appeared in front of him, with various awards written on it, gold coins, equipment, skill books, and even mysterious awards. Come on, give me the whole good thing. He rubbed his hands excitedly and clicked to start. The turn was swiveling at a speed, and finally stopped, pointing at the mysterious prize. Ding! Congratulations to player Lin Haotian for obtaining the magical skill Time and Space Rift. This skill allows players to shorten the time and shuttle in space. Please explore the specific effects by yourself. Warm reminder, please use it with caution. Over-reliance may lead to unknown consequences. Lin Haotian's eyes were straight. A magical skill? Time to scatter? Shuttle through space? It sounds so amazing. He quickly opened the skill column and saw a picture with golden light. The skill description was vague, but just looking at the name, you can tell that this thing is not simple. This movement is straight away. He couldn't help but grin, thinking that this newbie area would be leaving casually. Before he could think about it, a loud shout came from the side. Haotian! You're finally online. Lin Haotian turned his head and saw a weak and slutty warrior running towards him, carrying a broken axe in his hand, which was Zhang Dalai. Brother Lei, how did you choose a warrior? Didn't you say you were a tank? Lin Haotian quipped. Wei, aren't warriors just tanks? Come on, let's team, go outside the village to sweep a few wild wolves and get familiar with the operation. Zhang Dalai patted his chest, full of confidence in his face. The two quickly formed a team, took on the task of killing the wild wolf, and walked out of the village. On the way, Lin Haotian did not mention that he had drawn a magical skill. After all, this thing sounded too arrogant and said that Brother Lei would probably not believe it. The wild wolf in the novice area was not strong. The two of them cooperated to fight a few times. Zhang Dalai was responsible for resisting the injury. Lin Haotian stumbled and stabbed it with a dagger, so he could barely handle it. However, Lin Haotian's operation was actually average. He was almost knocked down by a wolf several times, which made Zhang Dalai fight against monsters and complain, "How come you are like a warrior, standing hard? Do you hide?" "Don't hide, this game is so real, I feel so angry as soon as I move." Lin Haotian wiped his sweat and gasped. As he was speaking, a low growl suddenly came from far away, and several larger-sized wild wolves came towards them, their eyes glowing red, which was obviously an elite monster. Zhang Dalai's face changed. Bone, level 5 elite wolf. We are only level 1, run. Lin Haotian didn't move, narrowed his eyes, thinking that this is a good opportunity to test new skills. He quickly opened the skill column and clicked Time and Space Rift. The next second, a strange scene happened. Everything around suddenly stopped, the wild wolf's movements were frozen in the air, and the voice disappeared, and the whole world seemed to be pressed to a pause key. This is too awesome. Lin Haotian was stunned. He tried to walk forward for a few steps, and found that he could move normally, and the static range was about 10 meters. He walked to an elite wolf, lifted his dagger and stabbed it hard. Although the damage was not high, he followed it one after another and stabbed more than 10 times in a few seconds. The time was static and lasted for about 5 seconds, and soon the world returned to normal. The elite wolf let out a cry, and the blood bar was cleared and he fell to the ground without moving. The other wolves were stunned for a moment and immediately rushed towards Lin Haotian, but at this time he activated the second effect of the skill, Shuttle Through Space. He was seen flashing and instantly appeared in the grass 10 meters away. Several wolves swept into the air and looked around in a confused manner. Zhang Dalai was even more stunned. His mouth was so slapped that he could stuff a chicken egg. "Haotian, what have you fucked just now? Why did you instantly teleport the elite wolf in seconds and then teleport?" Lin Haotian grinned and pretended to be indifferent. "The weather is good, and it's violent." "Teleportation? Maybe it's a game special effect." "You're a big deal. I've been playing for a long time, why haven't I seen this special effect?" Zhang Dalai looked suspicious, but he didn't ask much. After all, the game was online, and any strange setting was possible. The two continued to kill monsters, and Lin Haotian relied on the Time and Space Rift to fight easily and happily. His experience value rose rapidly and he rose to level 3 without a single moment. He felt happy in his heart, thinking that this skill was simply a magical tool. Not to mention the novice area, even if he went to a higher level map, he would probably be able to make a fortune. However, the good times did not last long. Just as they were about to return to the village to hand in the mission, a group of players suddenly walked up from afar, with more than a dozen people. The head was wearing a black cloak, with a sharp look as sharp as a knife, and the ID showed Wang Badian. The players behind him were all wearing uniforms and a magazine that dominates the world on his chest, and they were obviously members of the Grand Guild. "Hey, the two novices there, are you the elite wolf?" just instantly. Wang Badian's voice was low, with an unquestionable sense of pressure. Lin Haotian felt nervous and thought it was not good, but he still said, "So what? The elite wolf didn't write your name." Wang Badian sneered, his eyes swept over Lin Haotian, as if he could see through his details. "The elite monsters in the novice area cannot be killed in seconds. What kind of external or hidden skills are used? I can give you a horse after handing over them. Outside? We didn't use that thing," Lin Haotian said with a silly voice, deliberately pretending to be stupid, but his hand was already quietly holding the dagger. "Hard-mouthed, right?" Wang Badian waved his hand, and several players behind him immediately surrounded him, unsheathed his weapons, and was swollen. Zhang Dalai saw this and stood in front of Lin Haotian and said in a low voice, "Haotian, this help is not easy to mess with, let's run away." Lin Haotian gritted his teeth, knowing that he can't escape. There were many people on the other side, and his equipment and grades were higher than them. He glanced at the skill column. The cold time of the time and space rift was not good yet, so he could only delay the time. Everyone looked at it and saw a woman in a purple robe walking slowly. Her hair was as long as ink, and her pupils were shining with purple light. Her aura was so strong that people dared not look directly. Yi Shuanghua is displayed above her ID, and there is a golden NPC magazine next to her name. Wang Badian's face changed slightly, and he clearly recognized the identity of this NPC and said in a low voice, "Lord Yi Shuanghua, we are just passing by, there is no other meaning." "Over the way? Then let's go, don't be here." Yi Shuanghua said coldly, his eyes swept over Lin Haotian, as if he had glanced at him more. Wang Badian was unwilling to give up, but he didn't dare to say anything, and left with the help of others. Only then did Lin Haotian relax his voice and said to Yi Shuanghua, "Thank you for your help, otherwise we will be really ruined." Yi Shuanghua ignored his thanks and said lightly, "Your ability should not be wasting money in this place. Come with me, I have something to tell you." Lin Haotian was stunned for a moment, believing that this NPC was not simple, but he still followed him with curiosity. Zhang Dalai shouted from behind, "Haotian, don't run away, this NPC may be aware of it." "Don't worry, I'm a good match." Lin Haotian turned his head and smiled, thinking in his heart, what did Yi Shuanghua know? Is his time and space crack really that obvious? Yi Shuanghua took him to a remote forest outside the village, stopped walking, turned to look at him, his eyes as deep as if he could see through everything. "Lin Haotian, your skills are not something that ordinary players should possess. Tell me, how did you get it?" Lin Haotian's heart was thrilled, but she didn't expect that she would break the matter directly. He hesitated for a moment, and said in a fair manner, "The Easter egg award won by the draw is the system." Yi Shuanghua had a slight eyebrows, as if he had heard something incredible. After a moment of silence, he said, "This game is far more complicated than you think. Your skills will bring trouble and may also bring opportunities. If you want to survive, learn to hide yourself." "Hide it? How to hide it?" Lin Haotian was soaked in water. Yi Shuanghua didn't answer directly, but took out an ancient ring from her sleeve and sent it to him, where it can cover your skill fluctuations. But remember, this is just temporary. You will know the truth about the game sooner or later. Lin Haotian took the ring and asked his heart full of doubts, but Yi Shuanghua had turned away and his figure gradually disappeared deep in the forest. He looked at the ring with his head down, and his attributes showed the hidden ring. The effect was to reduce the probability of being detected by the system. He still had to explore how to use it slowly. "Haotian, what are you fucking? What did that NPC just say?" Zhang Dalai ran over panting, worried. It's nothing, I just gave a gadget. Lin Haotian smiled, put on the ring, and looked all kinds of guesses in his heart. Is this game really just a game? Yi Shuanghua's words and that magical skill always made him feel that there was a bigger secret behind him. Let's go back to the village to get the mission first, and then see if there are any better equipment. He patted Zhang Dalai on the shoulder, dressing it in a relaxed manner, but there was a bit of vigilance in his eyes. The two of them walked towards the village side by side, and the remaining vicissitudes of the sun were on the grassland, drawing their figures. Lin Haotian knew in his heart that this game had just begun. Lin Haotian and Zhang Dalai walked on the path back to the village side by side, with the orange light of the sun rising from the sun, warm and squinting eyes. The wind on the grassland was blowing lightly, bringing a hint of joy. Lin Haotian looked down at the hidden ring he was wearing, rubbing the ancient flower patterns on the ring with his fingertips, and still felt a little uneasy. Yi Shuanghua's words were like a stone pressing on his heart. What is the truth of the game? What does "will you know sooner or later" mean? No matter how true this game is, it is just a virtual world. How can it hide any amazing secrets? Haotian, what's wrong with you? You're worried after the NPC left. Zhang Dalai carried the broken axe and looked at him sideways, looking at him with curiosity. What did she tell you? Could it be that she was giving you any hidden missions, right? Lin Haotian returned to his senses, smiled reluctantly, and said with a head, "It's nothing, I just talked about it. The ring she gave can reduce the probability of being detected by the system. It is probably for the type of anti-sticking." He deliberately said it lightly, without raising Yi Shuanghua's meaningful warnings. After all, he himself hadn't figured out the situation yet, and saying that would only make Brother Lei even more worried. Reduce the detection probability? This thing sounds quite mysterious. Zhang Dalai slapped his head, his face full of confusion. But seriously, it's not like normal operation when you killed the elite wolf in seconds. Haotian, do you really have any special skills? Lin Haotian felt nervous, and his face was as if nothing had happened. He said, "Everyone said it was a violent attack in a storm. Why don't you believe it? Besides, this game is just online, and there are all kinds of strange settings. Maybe I'm just getting a temporary buff with a huge amount of energy." Zhang Dalai looked at him half-believingly and muttered, "Okay, I won't force you if you don't say anything. But let's talk about it. Don't carry it alone. Brother is here." He patted his chest, full of facial expressions. Lin Haotian felt warm and smiled. "Don't worry, you are the one who is indispensable." The two laughed, their pace gradually accelerated, and they returned to the novice village soon. The village is still hot, and there are novices all over the market. Some are selling garbage accessories they just found, while others are teaming up to call people to fight monsters. Lin Haotian and Zhang Dalai first handed over the task of killing the wild wolf, got some experience values and several copper coins, and then stood in front of the notice column at the entrance of the village to start studying the next goal. "Haotian, what mission should we take?" "There is a person who collects herbs, and the rewards are good, but they have to run far away." Zhang Dalai pointed to a mission in the notice column and said. Lin Haotian glanced at it and said, "The grass medicine mission is too hard. We should still take care of monsters and cooperate easily. I see that there is a task to clean the wild pig nest, and the reward is a green dagger, which is just right for me." He pointed to another mission and his eyes lit up. "Wild pig nest? It's not easy to hear. There are elite monsters or even small bosses in it." Zhang Dalai glanced at his eyebrows, obviously a little hesitant. "We are only in level 3 now, and the equipment is not easy. What should we do if we do it after a car? What are you afraid of?" "I'm here." Lin Haotian patted his shoulder, full of confidence. He knew in his heart that with the time and space rift, he could handle it even if he encountered a small boss. Now he had the ring of hiding, and his skill fluctuations were covered, so it should be safer to use. Zhang Dalai saw his confident appearance, and he couldn't object anymore. He pointed and said, "Okay, I'll hear you. But if you say that, don't force yourself when you encounter danger, we won't let you go." The two took over the task, simply replenished some medicine and food, and then went towards the wild pig nest outside the village. On the way, Lin Haotian specially tried the effect of the hidden ring. He found that after using the time and space rift, no abnormal prompts appeared on the system panel. It seems that this ring is really useful. He felt a little relaxed, but Yi Shuanghua's words "this is just temporary" still made him feel uneasy. The wild pig nest is located in a dense forest along the Xinshou district. The two walked for more than half an hour before they arrived at their destination. The light in the forest was dim, and a damp earthy smell was filled with the air. The low pig humming sound was constantly coming from afar, making people unable to help but feel nervous. Lin Haotian held the dagger tightly and said to Zhang Dalai in a low voice, "Brother Lei, you are opening the road ahead, I sneaked behind me. Don't hit me hard when you encounter a monster, and then tell me." "Okay, leave it to me." Zhang Dalai grinned, raised his broken axe, and walked in front with big strides. Without taking a few steps, a large wild pig suddenly appeared from the grass line, with fangs and red eyes, and directed towards Zhang Dalai. Zhang Dalai did not react slowly, and he erected his horse and axe to slam the head, resisting this blow, but the blood still dropped a small tube. It was obvious that the attack power of this wild pig was not low. "Haotian, help me. This thing is much more powerful than a wild wolf." Zhang Dalai shouted with a wild pig's impact on his head. Lin Haotian didn't rush to move. He narrowed his eyes and quickly swept around his eyes. After confirming that there were no other monsters, he said in a low voice, "Don't panic, I'll come." He quietly lingered behind the wild pig's side and watched the time machine activate the time and space fracture. In an instant, everything around him stopped, the wild pig's movements were frozen in the air, and Zhang Dalai's shout also stopped abruptly. Lin Haotian took advantage of these few seconds to lift the dagger and stab the wild pig's back. Although the damage was not high, the succession continued and stabbed it for more than 10 times. As time ceased, the wild pig let out a ruthless roar, and the blood bars were directly exposed to the bottom, and it fell to the ground with a sound. Zhang Dalai was stunned for a moment, turned his head and looked at Lin Haotian, his face full of shock. "I'm going, is this move again? What skill do you have? Why can you make a monster every time?" Lin Haotian slapped his head and said, "Silly, everyone said it was a sport. A assassin just ate by violent attacks." He knew in his heart that this incident would not take long, but now it is not the time to confess. Although Zhang Dalai was full of stomach and questioned, he didn't chase him and the two continued to go deep into the nest. Along the way, they encountered several wild pigs. Each time, Lin Haotian used the time and space crack to solve the problem. The cooperation became more and more tacit, and his experience value also increased rapidly. Not long after, he doubled to level 4. However, when they come deep into the nest, the situation begins to be uneven. There was a strong fishy smell in the air, and there were many white bones scattered on the ground. A huge figure was lying on the mud, with a size twice as big as an ordinary wild pig. There were spikes on its back, and the ID showed Wild Pig King, which was level 7. "Bone, this is the little boss, right? Level 7, can we beat it?" Zhang Dalai swallowed, and his hands holding the axe were shaking. Lin Haotian also raised his eyebrows, a 7th level boss, and he certainly crushed them, and he would never be able to fight. But he has a clear mind, and relying on the time and space crack, he may not be able to try it. He said in a low voice, "Brother Lei, you can hold on first, I'll find a chance to steal. Remember, don't fight hard, take medicine if you're halfway through the blood." "Okay, fight." Zhang Dalai gritted his teeth, raised his axe, roared and slammed it, trying to attract the attention of the Wild Pig King. The Wild Pig King was shocked and let out a low growl and rushed towards Zhang Dalai, which was astonishing as he could. Zhang Dalai strengthened his squat, but he was still hit and flew a few meters away. His blood instantly dropped 2/3, which made him so scared that he quickly filled a bottle of medicine. Lin Haotian saw the situation, and the Lenema activated the time and space fracture. At the moment when the time was quiet, he quickly trampled behind the Wild Pig King, and stabbed it hard on its back legs. After the time recovered, the Wild Pig King was in pain and turned around and rushed towards Lin Haotian with a roar. However, Lin Haotian had already prepared and instantly moved through the space, flashing 10 meters away, successfully avoiding the attack. The Wild Pig King was stunned and looked a little confused. Zhang Dalai took advantage of the opportunity to replenish his hatred. Haotian, continue. This guy is so thick that he has to beat him slowly. Zhang Dalai shouted with a heavy breath. Lin Haotian clicked a little and felt a little worried. The cooling time of time and space fracture is 30 seconds, and it takes a lot of energy to use each time. Long-term battles are a lot of burdensome to him. But there is no other way at the moment, so I can only stick to my head. One in front and one after another, Lin Haotian used his skills to deal with the Wild Pig King to deal with the high damage, and Zhang Dalai was responsible for resisting the injury and causing hatred. Although the process was shocked, the Wild Pig King's blood strip was finally worn down to less than half. However, at this moment, an accident happened. The Wild Pig King suddenly let out a deafening roar, the spikes on his body suddenly rose, the ground began to shake, and several small wild pigs crawled out of the surrounding soil, which was obviously its summoning object. Lin Haotian's face changed. Unexpectedly, this boss had this skill. Now they not only had to deal with the Wild Pig King, but also had to guard against the attack of these little monsters. Brother Lei, hold on. I'll clear the monster first. Lin Haotian gritted his teeth and shouted, quickly rushing to a little wild pig, intending to use his skills to quickly solve it. However, just as he activated the time and space rift, the system suddenly emitted a sharp sound, warning. During abnormal wave detection, the hidden effect will soon be invalid. Lin Haotian was shocked. How could the effect of the Ring of Hidden suddenly fail? But he couldn't think too much. Within 5 seconds of calm time, he quickly resolved the little wild pig, and then used space to shuttle through the Wild Pig King to avoid the collision. However, the system's prompt sound is still ringing around the ear. Abnormal fluctuations have been recorded. It is recommended that the player stop abnormal behavior immediately, otherwise the account risk will be encountered. What the hell? Is the system going to mess with me? Lin Haotian gritted his teeth, feeling anxious. Yi Shuanghua clearly said that this ring can cover the waves, so why doesn't it work now? Is it difficult to use too many times, which leads to weakening the effect? Haotian, what's wrong with you? Why is your face so hard to see? Zhang Dalai resisted the attack of the little wild pig and shouted at him. It's okay, be careful to fight monsters. Lin Haotian suppressed his anxiety and continued to deal with the Wild Pig King. But he clearly felt that the cold time of the skill seemed to have increased, and after each use, his head was a little dizzy, as if his spirit was overdrawn. Fortunately, after a hard battle, they finally cleaned all the wild pigs, and the last piece of blood was left in the Wild Pig King. Lin Haotian gritted his teeth and used the last time and space crack. After a series of attacks, the Wild Pig King let out an unwilling roar, fell to the ground, and exploded the equipment and materials all over the floor. It's done! Haha, the 7th level boss, we've really fucked it. Zhang Dalai shouted excitedly, running over to sweep the spoils with his face in sweat. Lin Haotian was not so excited. He was panting heavily on a tree, and his brain was filled with warnings from the system. He looked down at the hidden ring and found that the light on the ring had dimmed a lot, and it was obvious that the effect was almost exhausted. He had a bad premonition in his heart. Although this skill is strong, the more he used it, the more he seems to be troublesome. Haotian, come and see, this dagger is good, with green quality, and its attack power is much higher than your broken dagger. Lin Haotian smiled reluctantly, walked over and took the dagger, but his mind was not on it. He was about to say something, suddenly a hurrying sound came from afar, and then several players in uniform rushed out of Linzi, with the dominant world mark on his chest. 1. 2 newbies can actually kill the Wild Pig King, which is quite capable. A player in the lead sneered and opened his mouth, his eyes swept over Lin Haotian and Zhang Dalai, which was full of challenges. Lin Haotian's heart sank and realized that these people were Wang Beixian's subordinates before. He held the dagger tightly and said to Zhang Dalai in a low voice, "Brother Lei, you are ready to run away. This is not good for those who help others." Zhang Dalai also realized that he was not in a match, so he clicked the head, and the two quietly retreated and tried to draw the distance. However, the other party was obviously ready, and several people quickly scattered and surrounded them in the middle. "Run? Can you run?" The player who was in charge snorted coldly and lifted his weapon. "We have an order. When you see you, take it back directly. Lin Haotian, don't stumble, follow us obediently, maybe you can still suffer less." Lin Haotian gritted his teeth and his brain moved quickly. "I have just used the time and space fracture and the cooling time is not good yet. Now I will definitely not be able to fight hard." He glanced at Zhang Dalai and said in a low voice, "Brother Lei, I will hold them back once, you run away first and go back to the village to find someone to help." "What? I'll run? Who do you think I am?" Zhang Dalai glared, his face dissatisfied. "I want to run together, I want to fight together." Lin Haotian wanted to say something, but the other party was already impatient. Several people rushed up at the same time, with the weapon cold light flashing and was about to move. Just as the hair was so strong, a familiar cold voice suddenly echoed, "Do you dominate the world, and you don't take me seriously with my face?" Everyone was stunned and looked at it in the sound, only seeing Yi Shuanghua walking out of the deep forest. Her purple robe was flying with wind, and her atmosphere was so strong that people dared not look directly. Her appearance instantly caused several players who dominate the world to change their faces and quickly stop their actions. "Lord Yi Shuanghua, we are just doing things on orders, no other intentions." The player in the lead explained with a low head, with a little fear in his voice. "After orders? Then go back and tell Wang Beixian. I'll take care of what's happening here." Yi Shuanghua said coldly, his eyes swept over Lin Haotian, as if he was carrying a warning. Lin Haotian felt that the appearance of Yi Shuanghua this time was not just a simple help. He was about to say something, but Yi Shuanghua turned around and said to him in a low voice, "Come with me, don't talk." Zhang Dalai looked confused, but when he saw Lin Haotian pointing, he didn't say much. The two quickly left the scene with Yi Shuanghua. Although the people who dominate the world were unwilling to accept it, they did not dare to chase it. They could only watch them disappear deep in the forest in disappointment. Not long after leaving, Yi Shuanghua stopped walking, turned around and looked at Lin Haotian, with a cold look. "The ring I gave you is not for you to use like this. The skill wave has been recorded by the system. Do you think it is just a coincidence that you have come to you for the world of dominance?" Lin Haotian was shocked and said, not knowing what to say. Yi Shuanghua's words were obviously warning him that the time and space crack was no longer something he could control. Lin Haotian stood deep in the dense forest, the fallen leaves under his feet were rustling, and the fishy smell of just fighting remained in the air. He looked at Yi Shuanghua in front of him, and the purple robe emitted a strange light in the dim light. Her eyes were as cold as ice, making people feel nervous. Zhang Dalai next to him gasped, looked at Lin Haotian with confusion, and then looked at Yi Shuanghua, but obviously he had not figured out the situation yet. "What does it mean? The skill waves are recorded? Haotian, what are you doing with me?" Zhang Dalai finally couldn't help it, and asked with a snail of eyebrows, with a dissatisfaction in his voice. Although he is careless at ordinary times, he is not a fool. Lin Haotian's abnormal performance in the battle, and Yi Shuanghua's words clearly have a lot of secrets. Lin Haotian bit his lip, hesitated for a moment, and finally sighed and said in a low voice, "Brother Lei, I really haven't told you some things clearly. When I was in the game, I drew a special skill, which was quite amazing, but it also brought a lot of trouble." He didn't directly say the name of time and space fracture, but he himself hadn't figured out the matter completely. If he said too much, it would only make Brother Lei even more worried. Zhang Dalai was stunned for a moment, then widened his eyes. "Special skill? Just the kind of wild pig king you killed instantly?" "Bottom, Haotian, your energy is too outrageous. But, what does this have to do with the system record? How can this NPC know so much? Yi Shuanghua didn't wait for Lin Haotian to answer, and interjected coldly, because this game is not as simple as you think. Lin Haotian, your ability has reached the core rules of the system. The ring of hiding can only cover up the wave at a time, but the more you use it, the greater the risk of exposure. Dominating the world comes to you, it's just the beginning, and there will be more trouble in the future. Lin Haotian's heart sank. Although Yi Shuanghua heard this mysterious sound, combined with the warning from the system, he certainly felt that there was something insignificant behind the game. He lowered his head and looked at the dim and light-hidden ring in his hand and asked, "Then what should I do now? Without skills, I am just an ordinary player and I can't even make it in the novice area, let alone the helper who is the world's domineering world is still staring at me." Yi Shuanghua was silent for a moment, and a complex look flashed in his purple pupils. Later, he slowly said, "If you want to survive, you have to become stronger, so strong that no one dares to move you. Your skill is to use the double blade. If you use it well, you will be invincible. If you use it well, it will destroy you. I can help you, but you have to answer one thing." "What's the matter?" Lin Hao asked in a clear mind, feeling a little alert. Although this NPC saved him several times, her purpose was never clear and always made people feel uneasy. Yi Shuanghua didn't answer directly, but just raised his hand and slapped it. A translucent map appeared in the air in front of him, marking a red spot with a light spot deeper in the jungle. She said lightly, "Go here and find the entrance to the Tower of Heaven. There are the answers you need, which can also allow you to truly master your abilities. But remember, don't trust anyone, including me after entering." Lin Haotian and Zhang Dalai looked at each other, and both of them were confused. What is the Tower of Heaven? What does not mean to trust anyone? Why do NPCs always say that there is a fog in the cloud? Zhang Dalai couldn't help but mutter, "Why is this evil when you hear this mission? Haotian, do we really want to go? What should I do if I do this? Lin Haotian also felt hesitant, but he knew in his heart that his current situation could not allow him to retreat. Domineering the world will not let him go, and the system's warnings are becoming more and more frequent. If he does not understand the truth of this game, he will sooner or later be forced into the end. He gritted his teeth and pointed, "Go. Brother Lei, if you don't want to make up for this matter, it's still time to return to the village, and I can handle it alone." "Fuck." Zhang Dalai Lima glared and patted his chest. "I said it was a brother, how could I run away? Besides, I'm really worried if I don't follow you. Let's go to this Tower of Heaven together." Yi Shuanghua looked at them, her eyes flashing with a sense of relief that was hard to detect, but soon returned to indifference. She turned around and said in a low voice, "Don't waste time, the entrance will not be open all the time. Also, Lin Haotian, control your skills, otherwise you will die faster if you enter the tower." After speaking, her figure faded away, as if it had never appeared. Lin Haotian looked at the place where she disappeared, and his heart was filled with scent. He knew that once this path continued, he might not be able to get back. But for now, he doesn't have any choice. "Let's go, Brother Lei, let's see what secrets are hidden in the Tower of Enlightenment this day." He patted Zhang Dalai on the shoulder, and the two of them followed the map and walked deeper into the dense forest. The road in the dense forest became more and more difficult, and the branches and thorns made people's faces hurt, and a pressure filled the air, as if something would come out of the darkness at any time. Lin Haotian held the dagger tightly and was always alert. Zhang Dalai opened the way with an axe in front of him, and he still complained, "How come this broken place looks like a ghost movie scene? Then the NPC won't really cheat us, right? Don't think about it, you will know when you arrive at the location." Lin Haotian said, and he was not sure. The red spots on the map are getting closer and closer, but there are still trees around, and there is no shadow of tower at all. He was about to check the direction again when suddenly his foot shook, and the ground seemed to be hit by something, and then a low voice came from a distance. "What's the silence?" Zhang Dalai stopped suddenly and held the axe and Zhang Wang everywhere. Lin Haotian narrowed his eyes and looked in the direction of the sound. He could only see a dark blue light coming from the forest in front of him, as if some kind of energy was flowing. His heart thumped and he said in a low voice, "Brother Lei, go and take a look, be careful." The two of them approached quietly, and after opening the last few branches, the scene in front of them made them stunned at the same time. I saw a huge black stone tower standing on a clearing ground. The tower body was filled with strange runes, emitting a faint blue light, and the air around it seemed to be twisted. There is a half-open stone door at the bottom of the tower, and the door is pitch black, as if it can swallow everything. Both trough, is this the Tower of Heaven? Why do you look so angry? Zhang Dalai swallowed, his voice lowered a few points. Lin Haotian also felt angry, but since he came, there was no reason to retreat. He took a deep breath and said, "Go in." Yi Shuanghua said, "The answer is inside, we have to try it." As he said, he took the lead in walking towards the stone gate. Although Zhang Dalai was hesitant, he still gritted his teeth and followed. As soon as I stepped into the stone gate, a cold chill came over my face, as if it was directly swept into my bones. The light inside the tower is extremely dark, and you can only see the stone road under your feet clearly. Various reliefs are carved on the walls on both sides, and the picture looks like some ancient war scene, full of pressure. Lin Haotian tried to open the system map and found that the signal here was completely blocked and there was only a blank space on the panel. "Haotian, if this place is not aligned, the system cannot be used. Do we really want to continue?" Zhang Dalai's voice was clearly tight, and the axe in his hand was tighter. "It's all here, it's no reason to die halfway." Lin Haotian was determined and actually felt a little nervous. He found out that the tower was not just a copy, and the things hidden inside might be far beyond his imagination. The two walked along the stone road and soon arrived at a huge circular hall. A crystal flashed with red light floated in the center of the hall, emitting strong energy waves. There are several small doors embedded in the walls around, each door with different symbols engraved, like an entrance to different areas. "What is this crystal? It looks quite valuable." Zhang Dalai couldn't help but approach and reached out to touch it. "Don't be upset." Lin Haotian hurriedly grabbed him, his voice low, "This place is not a good place at first sight. We have to explain what mechanism you need to touch." As soon as he fell, the crystal suddenly buzzed, and then the ground of the hall began to shake. Several black shadows appeared from the shadows on the wall. There were several huge stone monsters with red lights, and their eyes were flashing towards them. "Call, come true!" Zhang Dalai roared, raised his axe and went up to meet him. Lin Haotian quickly pulled out his dagger and prepared to fight. The level of these stone monsters is as high as 15, far beyond their current abilities, and it is almost impossible to beat them. Lin Haotian gritted his teeth and decided to take a chance, activate the time and space rift. At the moment of stagnation, he quickly trampled behind a stone monster, stabbed its joints for a few times, and tried to produce the maximum damage. However, after time recovered, the blood of the stone monster almost didn't move much, and its defense was obviously too high. Lin Haotian's heart sank, realizing that he might have really kicked the iron board this time. "Haotian, I can't stand it anymore. This thing is too hard, let's run away." Zhang Dalai slapped the attack of the stone statue monster, shouting, and most of the blood strips had fallen. Lin Haotian glanced at the hall and found that one of the small doors suddenly lit up, as if it was activated. He gritted his teeth and said, "Brother Lei, run there, enter the door and say it." As he said, he used the space to shuttle to Zhang Dalai's body in an instant, and pulled him towards the door. The stone monster roared and chased after him, but the speed was a little slow. The two of them rushed into the door, and then the stone wall behind the door automatically merged, leaving the monster out. Lin Haotian and Zhang Dalai leaned against the wall, gasping heavily, sweating heavily, and palpitations. This broken tower is just a life-threatening person. Zhang Dalai wiped his sweat and said carelessly, "Haotian, do we really want to continue? Let's have a few more monsters like this, we will designate a breeze." Lin Haotian didn't say anything, his eyes fell on the passage behind the door. This passage is darker than the just-sized hall. There is blood on the walls on both sides, and there is an indescribable breath in the air. He knew in his heart that Yi Shuanghua had let him come here not only to die, but there must be something key hidden in the tower. "Brother Lei, why don't you go out first? I'll explore the way alone," he said softly, with a few points in his language. "Don't talk nonsense, you have to go together, you have to go together." Zhang Dalai glared at him, obviously not intending to let him take a single adventure. Lin Haotian felt warm and he clicked a little, and the two continued to walk along the passage. At the end of the passage is a smaller room. There is a stone table in the center of the room. There is an old book on the table, and the cover is engraved with the words Tian Xian Record. Lin Haotian walked over, hesitated for a while, and then flipped through the book page. The content in the book is written in a strange text, but strangely, he can actually understand it. The book records the origin of the Great Earth and the real purpose of this tower. It is not only a copy in the game, but also a stage that connects virtual and real. And his time and space rift skill is actually the key of this stage, which can affect the core code of the game and even interfere with the real world. What does this mean? Is the influence of the game real? Lin Haotian looked at the content on the book and his brain was in a mess. Zhang Dalai on the side also came over, shocked with his face. "Haotian, is this book true? Can we still play the end of the world by playing a game?" Lin Haotian had not come to answer yet, and a low smile suddenly came from the wall of the room, and then a familiar figure walked out of the shadow. It was Wang Badian. He was wearing a black cloak, his eyes were cold, and a mocking smile was hanging on the corner of his mouth. "Lin Haotian, I didn't expect you to find this. It seems that Yi Shuanghua really has some vision when he chose you." Wang Badian walked closer, and the dagger in his hand flashed with a cold light. "However, the secret here is not something you can touch. If you hand over your skills, I can make you die happily." Lin Haotian felt nervous, but he didn't expect that Wang Badian would chase him here. He held the dagger tightly and said to Zhang Dalai in a low voice, "Brother Lei, I'm ready to fight. This guy won't let us go." Zhang Dalai pointed at the head, raised his axe and slapped in front of Lin Haotian, full of anger. "Wang Badian, is it interesting to bully a newbie? There is a single choice." Wang Badian sneered and rushed up without saying a word. His level and equipment were far superior to Lin Haotian, and he took action as fast as a flash. After a few moves, he forced Zhang Dalai to retreat. Lin Haotian saw the situation, gritted his teeth and activated the time and space rift and tried to steal the picture, but Wang Badian seemed to have been ready, and he instantly avoided his skills, which obviously had some protection against his skills. "Just like this little guy, I want to fight with me?" Wang Badian snorted coldly and stabbed Lin Haotian in the chest with a backhand. Lin Haotian hit hard, but a blood mark was still drawn on his arm, and most of the blood fell off instantly. At this moment, the air in the room suddenly twisted, and Yi Shuanghua's figure appeared again. She raised her hand and slapped her, and a purple light hit Wang Badian, forcing him to retreat for a few meters. Her eyes were cold and her voice was low. "Wang Badian, this is not where you should come." Crack. Wang Badian's face changed, and he was obviously very jealous of Yi Shuanghua. He gritted his teeth, glared at Lin Haotian fiercely, and then turned around and disappeared into the shadow. Lin Haotian gasped and looked at Yi Shuanghua, and asked with a heart full of doubt, "Who are you? Who are you? Why do you help me again and again?" Yi Shuanghua didn't answer, but walked to the stone table, closed the book lightly, and then turned around and looked at him, with a complex light flashing in his purple pupils. "Lin Haotian, remember, the boundary between games and reality will soon collapse. The key in your hand will decide everything. Live well and don't disappoint me." After saying that, her figure faded away, leaving a dead silence. Lin Haotian stood there, holding the dagger tightly in his hand, and was surging in his heart with countless guesses. Zhang Dalai next to him also looked confused and said in a low voice, "Haotian, this matter is getting more and more evil. What should we do next?" Lin Haotian took a deep breath and his eyes fell on the stone table. The book was no longer visible, and was replaced by a crystal fragment with a glimmer of light. He walked over and picked up the fragments. A sudden sound of the system prompted in his ears, "Congratulations to player Lin Haotian, who completed the first stage of the Tower of Heaven, obtained the core fragments, and the subsequent mission is about to be opened. He looked at the crystal in his hand, and his heart was filled with mixed feelings. What exactly is this game? What does Yi Shuanghua mean? He didn't know, but he knew that next, he had to go on, no matter what was ahead. Brother Lei, let's go. Let's leave here first, and go back and think slowly. He patted Jean Dalai on the shoulder, and the two turned around and walked out of the tower, and their feet were heard in the empty passage, carrying a heavy slight heavy. It was already dark outside the tower, and the wild beasts were roaring in the dense forest. Lin Haotian looked at the crystal fragments in his hand and his eyes calmed down. No matter what secrets are hidden behind this game, he must figure it out, even if this path is full of danger.